Do you like farming, zombies, post-apocalyptic Texas? I do, which is why I requested a key for The Last Farmer about 2 years ago. Well, I finally received that key and decided to give it a go. So first, the obligatory mention that I received this free review copy of The Last Farmer from keymailer.co. This video is gonna be more reviewy than I normally do, so hopefully you're still on board with that. In any case, let's get on with the show. The Last Farmer was developed by Geekon and published by Midnight Games. Looks like I'm gonna have to think of a new name if I ever decide to go into publishing. Anyway, The Last Farmer is a post-apocalyptic base-building zombie survival craft experience set in the desert of what has to be West Texas. It shares similarities with all the games in this genre, so you get the gist of what to expect. There are things that I like about this game, and there are things that I don't like about this game. But let's do a little setup before we get to that. Your character is a wanderer who is ready to find a place to settle down. He travels all the way out here to West Texas and finds an old busted up garage next to a small body of water to homestead in. It's a nice little mostly enclosed area that only has one direction to enter. Your goal is to make your home more defensible, grow crops to eat and trade, and fix up this car that was conveniently left behind. Sounds simple enough, and it pretty much is. Most of the items you need to fix the car are right here in the garage, and the rest aren't too far off. Once you've got it running and fueled up, you'll have not only a much faster and safer way to get around the map, but also a zombie killing machine. Note that you absolutely need this car to get around in any kind of timely fashion. Trying to get everywhere on foot is painfully tedious. However, you need gas to keep that car going. At first, you'll find a few jerry cans full of gas that'll keep you going for a minute, but if you end up running out, you're screwed until you can afford to buy more, or get the blueprint to make your own. Now of course, this costs money. Or should I say bottle caps? Yes, bottle caps. Now, while you can find small caches of them around the map in various places, you'll mainly get them from selling crops and completing quests. Mostly selling crops though. There's only like a handful of these quests in the game. To get those crops, you'll have to scavenge around for seed packets. Not to worry though, they are plentiful out in the world. You can also buy them, but that's better left for when you can and want to grow a lot more crops at once. You're also going to need schematics to unlock the planters in which these crops will grow. There aren't just schematics for planters, there are some for tools, weapons, fertilizer, feed, and more. But back to the plants. Add the seed packet and some water and just wait for them to grow. But if you want them to grow faster or have a better chance of producing multiple veggies from one plant, then a little fertilizer is in order. You can find a ton of this stuff just from scavenging, but you can also make it a couple different ways. There are a few pigs running around the map that you can grab up and take home with you, which will produce dung once fed or watered. Mix the dung with some dirt, and there you go. Alternatively, once you get the fertilizer machine built, you can simply throw zombies into it and get a nice bag of crafted fertilizer. So you've got your crops grown, now you gotta sell them. There's a couple vendors that will buy them from you for a decent amount. You don't have to grind too much to reach that $10,000 money cap. But uh-oh, the zombies have destroyed all your hard work. Which is why you'll need to put up some walls. Come on, talk to me. I know we're all good at doing that. Once you have these defensive walls up, you'll no longer get zombies spawning in your yard. Or at least that's what happened for me on easy mode. Yes, I played easy mode because I'm trying to limit the amount of torture I apply to myself. You can also upgrade these walls to metal sheeting, and then iron. But honestly, at least on easy mode, upgrading was not necessary because rarely did a zombie even try to attack it. I imagine the upgraded walls do come in handy at higher difficulties though. So that's your base in a nutshell. Just about everything further facilitates the growing of more veggies. But what about the rest of the map? The exploration? Well, at first you only have access to about half of the map. These bandits dressed up as soldiers have sealed these gates and made camp there. And worse, they want you to pay tribute via vegetables so they don't shoot you, I guess. Once you find this survivor camp, you'll get the quest to eliminate the main soldier camp, which will allow us to open the gate and explore further. After eliminating that one camp, you no longer need to pay the toll. However, as you can see, the quest won't go away if it was active before dealing with the soldier camp. You're stuck with it sitting there on your screen for the rest of the playthrough. Anyway, you can go eliminate the rest of the soldiers if you want to. In fact, you're supposed to get an achievement for it. But, and as I said, on easy mode, that's about all that happens. They won't come after you regardless of what you choose to do. Moving on, as far as the buildings and such go, there's not a lot of variety. But then again, this is a small map, so that at least is a tad forgivable. There are houses, apartment buildings, both above and underground, a few stores, garages, and gas stations, a couple of restaurants, and a prison. And supposedly a bunker, but I can never find it. In these buildings, you'll find all your lootables, from seed packets to schematics, and all the food and drink you'll ever need. Seriously, I didn't even need to eat any of the veggies because there was so much canned food to find. Unfortunately, there are no lootable containers. You'll find everything just laying out in the open. But you can destroy a lot of the wooden and metal objects that litter the area, gaining you materials to craft with. And as far as the environment goes, well, it's a desert, a mostly barren place with rocks and red sand. However, there is a weather system. It does rain and can get hazy, and there are even thunderstorms. I thought that was a neat inclusion. The nights are reasonably dark. I usually like my nights to be pretty dark for my realism, but I don't mind them being bright enough to at least navigate without a light source. But let's go ahead and talk about the NPCs a little. These guys have a serious case of the frozen face and are masters of ventriloquism. Look at that. Not even a twitch. Also, that's obviously an AI voice. I know it's rich for me to point out the use of AI voices since a couple of my very first videos have them. But I stopped doing that pretty quick and switched to being 100% all natural grade A human content. But regardless of how you feel about all that, you have to admit that at least from a quality perspective, it sounds terrible. I'm not gonna crucify them for its use though, because like I said, I'm guilty of having done the same thing back in 2024 as well. But I don't have to like it. I also need to point out that the Steam AI disclosure for this game says there are AI-generated art objects. I'm going to assume they mean pictures like these, which there aren't many of. Anyway, this isn't a video about AI, this is about The Last Farmer, but I did want to mention it. In any case, there aren't too many NPCs around to even interact with. In a way, it kind of makes sense because this is a post-apocalypse. But the lack of NPCs means a lack of quests. However, the quests you do get are mostly fetch quests, with the exception of like 2. But what about the combat? It's bad. Both melee and firearm combat is clunky and slow, doesn't feel good, doesn't feel fun to do. The firearms are better, but they aren't great. Honestly, your best and most fun weapon is your car, especially after you upgrade with some defenses. Grab your chicken, turn on the radio, and speed around hitting as many zombies as you can. You ready for some mayhem, Henrietta? The downside is the lag. But that could just be the fact that I'm running, recommended specs. In any case, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it's extremely annoying. On the plus side, it does have a few songs to rock out to while you're pretending you're playing Twisted Metal. 2 more things I want to mention about combat before we move on. First, Judgment Night. Think of it like 7 Days to Die's Blood Moon. Light. Every 4 days, zombies will spawn nearby and attack your base. If you're on higher difficulties anyway. On easy mode, they mostly ignore you once you have those walls up. Also, I don't think this was the intention, but if you stand on something that isn't normally walkable for zombies or the bandit soldiers, you become invisible to them. You can stand there and take pot shots all day and they won't even acknowledge your presence. And that's pretty much the game. So now let me talk a little bit more about what I liked and what I didn't like. The audio ambience seems to fit the vibe, so decent choice there, no complaints. I love that we're able to put animals in the car and drive around with them. It's always a highlight when games let me do that. Being able to drive a vehicle, period. Absolutely love that. Feels very Mad Maxy. And this is a weird one, but I like that the footsteps sound substantial. There's meat to that sound, which gives you a tangible audio feedback that pleases the senses. Unfortunately, it's more difficult for me to think of things I enjoyed about this game because the things I enjoyed have been done better in other games already. And admittedly, I'm being pretty nitpicky about some of the issues because of that. I'll start with not being able to see your legs. This is a problem with a lot of first-person games, not just this one. I don't know how hard it is to animate the lower body, but it is certainly appreciated when it's done, and disappointing when it isn't. Same thing for free-floating objects. I prefer seeing them in hand, but it's not that big of a deal. The presence of all the UI stuff on the screen is an issue because it looks very cluttered and limits your field of view. I would have liked if the veggies themselves were more of a representation of what you would see in that environment. Instead of cabbage and pumpkins, it could have been stuff like okra, sweet potatoes, watermelon, squash. You get the gist. I would have also liked if there was more to base building. As it is, you get the bare minimum. Just enough to defend your base and grow crops, and maybe produce a few things like cooked food and fuel. Base building is my jam, and this was extremely disappointing. It just felt very lackluster. I don't have to have a ton of things to build, but I would have liked to have more customization. Or do something like Sons of the Forest. There wasn't a whole lot of decor and stuff to build, but the act of building the base was fun in itself. And I gotta mention the bottle caps. I'm not saying that Bethesda has a monopoly on bottle cap money, but its inclusion here just seems slapped on. Why not use crops to purchase everything, like you can with ingots? Well, I mean, as it is now, it'd be very tedious and very cumbersome, but maybe if they increase the stack size, or hell, come up with something else besides bottle caps. Really, I can just sum this up by saying, this game, in my opinion, needs more polish, more substance, and a few more bug fixes. Unfortunately, I don't think that's gonna happen as the devs have moved on by now. I've played my fair share of not great games, and they are what they are. Sometimes you love it either in spite or because of the jank. But I'm sorry to say that The Last Farmer isn't one of them. Not for me anyway. I'm not saying the whole experience was a miserable slog, because it wasn't. I did have fun with it for a while. It's just that the fun only lasted a few hours of my 15-hour playthrough. For free? That's fine. But if I were to pay money for this, it's not good enough. I'm a little irritated because the premise is great. It's right up my alley. I've sunk hundreds of hours in games like 7 Days to Die and Project Zomboid, and it's a shame that I can't add another to my roster. It's not that this is a terrible game, because it's not, but it's not very good either. It feels paper thin, if you know what I mean. I cannot recommend this game as it is right now. Well, maybe to an achievement hunter, since the achievements in this game are fairly easy to 100%. Oh wait, that's bugged. I couldn't get the Purge achievement to activate even though I did eliminate all the soldiers. I believe it's because of the bug I mentioned earlier about the toll quest not clearing properly. Although I think it's still possible to get them all, you just have to start a new game to do so. I'm not trying to trash on someone else's work, I don't like doing that. But I am gonna be honest, and I honestly did not like this game as a whole. But if you think I'm wrong and this sounds like something you'd absolutely love to play, it is available on Steam for about $13. And if you played this and you loved it, then that's great, there's nothing wrong with that. You like what you like, I like what I like. And if you agree or disagree with my views on it, then feel free to let me know. Tell me what you liked about it or didn't like about it, or what you'd do to improve on it. Also, let me know if you want to see more videos like this. Maybe more in depth though. I was on a very strict time limit to get this out, completely my fault. So I wasn't able to deep dive into these issues, but hopefully you got the gist of it all. Anywho, that's gonna be it for this review of The Last Farmer. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope it was entertaining or informative, or at least gave you something to watch or listen to during laundry or lunchtime. I just said or a whole bunch. Jesus. Get yourself together, goat. Anyway, thank you again. You are the goat. And thank you to my morning through midnight goats that support the channel on Patreon and YouTube memberships. Isha, Mascabre, In Water Ending, and Imp Dragon 9190. You are the reason I was able to get this out so fast thanks to the coffee I can afford to caffeinate my blood. Thank you. And I'll see you again on The Midnight Goat.